It is Tara here, your Christian wife, homeschool mom of many, going live for my midlife that I do 3 times a week to help encourage other moms of many embrace the blessing of children with joy and confidence. Check on my phone to make sure this is casting some audio issues. Oh, live. Right, making sure you can hear me right. Because yeah, we had some sound problems. Did you redo the whole thing? All right, am I coming through live? I am. Today we're going to talk about what you do when the kids aren't listening. Listening. I put some quotation scare marks around the word listening because this is a very common mom experience, especially when your kids start to get, they're not quite at the baby stage anymore. And whether you've been babysitting or as a mom, when they're like actually your kids and you have the God-given authority now to instruct them on what to do in that situation. Oftentimes, mom, myself included, I've absolutely been there, resort to. So common scenario might be like, I don't know, your 11-year-old is having some scheduled screen time. And we agreed at 3 o'clock, time's up. There's even maybe a timer on the device that goes off and the device has gone off. I've given, a 5-minute heads up warning. And they just say, I'm almost done. And you're kind of like, oh, wasn't the deal, right? So maybe, you get a little distracted, whatever, you go do something for 2-3 minutes, you come back and like, no, like time's up. And you can feel your temperature rising and your tone getting louder because you're really like getting through that thick skull. Like, no, mommy said time's up. I'm done. They're almost like fed to you. Ooh, right? They're done that. Yelling and be like, mommy said get off the thing right now. Kids growling and grouchy and frowny and you're all angry and grouchy frowny, and this could be a really common scenario. I've read about this like several times in moms groups that I'm part of, and it's completely relatable. When I read it, I'm not just like, oh, what's wrong with you? More like me. I can relate to it. I can relate to the losing your temper and resorting to yelling to get results. I've been there. I did that, especially mom, because I was so unprepared for motherhood. I went to school all the time. I didn't watch mother this model of how to like keep your temper. And sometimes, especially in the thick of whatever it takes to get results, especially when it's irritating and annoying, like sometimes obviously dissing you and being disrespectful, like your own child. And on some level, you're well versed with the scriptures. It says in there in the Bible that aren't you supposed to like your mother and children obey your parents in the Lord. There's a lot of verses that talk about that, son, daughter, whoever it is. I also know that it feels awful. It feels awful on so many levels because I know that I've now sinned in my anger. I got results, but what did I have to do to get there? And it's not good for my relationship with my son, good for me. Now I'm all stressed out and I feel terrible and I don't know what to do. Is there a better way? Oftentimes that's what these moms are asking for. Like, I completely get it. You're like, is this is really the high watermark of parenting, that I yell or scream at my kids to get just like. And so oftentimes the moms will phrase their post like this, they'll just have a bit of a rant, which I totally understand, explain what happened, and be like, my listening. So I resort to yelling and I hate myself for it. But what else am I supposed to do? They're asking for help, completely understandable, like good on help, right? Rather than just keeping it going. And then where do you go from there, right? You just have to yell louder and louder. Like, where does it go, right? So a couple of thoughts I want to share today that be an encouragement. Or if you're like, I will never, because you don't maybe have any kids yet, or your kids are really, really little, like not even old enough yet to assert their will, then you might think you're going to be a perfect mom. So heads up, you might a little pride might come before that fall. And that's not in any way to condone screaming or yelling at your kids. It's just when it happens, it will help you to have a couple strategies in your back. So that's what I'm going to do today, is to share a little bit from my experience as a mom up the road of yelling at her kids to get results, hating it, and finding a better way. So step 1 is instead of using the word listening, I reframed the situation as to what was happening. And it's not really a popular word, but I believe it is biblically accurate for myself and for my children to really speak more biblical language as a Christian mom, right? Language, obviously, they can understand. So I don't say, you're not listening, because I know they can hear me. My children don't have any auditory issues, so it's certainly not an actual hearing related problem. This is something else. They're not obeying, right? They're not obeying. And that's the issue, biblically defined. And like I just mentioned before, the scriptures speak to this, right? That children are commanded to obey their parents in the Lord, for this is right. Thinking of Ephesians 6:1, a verse that we have our children memorize at an early age, just to impress upon them in a good, healthy way, the way we see it, even though our culture may not see it in that way. As a Christian mom, I'm not asking for their approval to train my children in, the fear and admonition of the Lord and guide them in Christian principles, not only for their own sake and benefit, but also for the peace of our home as we live together as a stay-at-home big family model. So rather than softening the term, but with like a euphemism that's more culturally appropriate and maybe more palatable, even to say, you need to listen to me. And I'm like, what I'm saying is you need to obey, choose to obey, right? Choose for yourself this day whom you will serve. Like, what's it going to be when I lay down the gauntlet? So there's a lot more I could share about that, honestly. And it's actually going to be a deep dive I'm going to do in a mini course I'm developing right now in my 7-part Moms of Many mini course series. One of them is going to be on healthy boundaries and discipline, because that's a whole other talk. This is just a live. So I'll give you some tidbits, but this is not going to be the exhaustive deep dive in like, how do you do that? How do you create healthy boundaries and communication and discipline with your kids? Or at least one way one other mom has done it and gotten results without having to resort to screaming and yelling to get there. So first things first is define obedience, right? That way my feelings don't just become the gauge of what's going on. The more offended I am, then the more they're disobeying. Yes or no. So what I've done is and I don't know if anybody taught me this or where we picked it. I'd love to give credit where credit is due. Maybe we just figured this out over time. My husband and I just defined having 3 equal parts. And if any one of those parts is missing, it is not defined as obedience anymore. So 3 parts. In order to be defined as obedience, the action needs to be immediate, cheerful, and complete. So let's use the screen analogy I just shared with you. So it didn't get turned off immediately. It wasn't done cheerfully, and it was not complete. Like, it failed on all 3. Now, sometimes I might have a scenario, let's say with my 4-year-old, very common scenario where she does the job. Let's say I say, mommy says, it's not, because she's just been playing with some Duplo blocks on the floor. She dumped the whole thing out and had a grand time. And now it's time we're going to have snack time in a couple of minutes to clean up. So there's the instruction. Calmly, cheerfully, I gave it to her. I said, now, what did mommy say? Clean up. Okay, boom. So she heard me, not a listening issue. And I come back a couple minutes later, check on her, and she hasn't done a thing. I'm like, we're going to have snack. Mommy said it's time to clean up. And then I say, will you obey? Because that's the issue. Will you obey? And it's like, cool. It's a choice. I'll talk about that more. I'm not really getting personally emotionally attached to this decision. I'm just pointing out to her it's a choice. And so she might then at that point start to huff and puff and grumble and get the job done. But it wasn't particularly cheerful, nor was it really originally on time. Eventually she's done because she really wants that snack. And I'm not given the snack till the job is done. And I might help her a little bit, and come down there and be like, hey, let's find all the red ones together, because I know she's just having a bad mood. Listen, I'm going to deal with my 4-year-old differently than my 11-year-old, right? Because they're developmentally, psychologically, just at different levels. It's not that I condone disobedience, but I'm going to address my 4-year-old's issue more as an opportunity and to let her know, hey, when mom says clean up, it's time to obey. So make sure you do it right away with a good attitude. So I'm going to give more instructions, right? Because I don't see that as like a willful rebellion against my authority where she consciously knows what she's doing and she's doing it anyway. With my 11-year-old, different. Again, emotionally give myself some space from that. Those are his choices. They don't reflect on my parenting or on our relationship. I'm just noting a little bit more objectivity. He's choosing to disobey his mother in the Lord right now. Okay, so deal with it a little bit differently. Obviously, I give him a 1 heads up verbal reminder. I might give him one grace. We do a step 1, step 2, where I'll give you 1. Hey, mommy said da 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 da, and then I phrase it like this is engaging. Will you obey? And they answer. I expect an answer to the question, not a mumble, not a nod, a verbal yes or no. Obviously, they're going to say yes, right? Because if they say no, it's a different story. They've just saved us and then we'll deal with their choice to be like, no. But usually it's like, no, mom, I can't. I actually have to go to the bathroom. Okay, fine. I completely understand. Go to the bathroom and then come back. But if we're talking about your actions speak louder than words, yes, but then they proceeded to really no, we're going to deal with it. So the first thing is I define obedience: immediate, cheerful, complete. Next is I've already defined well in advance of this situation, and I'll talk about that more in Friday's live. What will be the outcome if they in fact choose to disobey? Because it happens, right? Even like a really tried and true, more experienced parent like self, it still happens. We're still humans. I still have the capacity to disobey. Best interest to do so, right? So rather than take it personally, I simply adhere the outcome of their choice. And it really helps to have it already clearly defined. But in the interest of time, I'm going to do that in Friday's live because it's a two-part series of what to do if kids aren't listening. Defining obedience is so helpful, and having outcomes that are already decided in advance, so huge. Brings my stress rate down. Rather than resorting to yelling, kind of like a cop, I just follow through and be like, look, doing 100 and a 60. Here's what happens next, right? And it's just calm. My husband loves it. It's just keep cool. Not follow through in our God proper authority of proper discipline, what that looks like in specific situations. It helps me understand better what's expected of them, how the flow of the house goes. Things aren't so wild and unpredictable, and mommy's just an emotional monster. You never really know what to expect from her, one day to the next. It helps them become more respectful of authority, and they grow to understand a life principle that choices have consequences. Like consequences you don't like. And that's such a valuable life training issue. I'm so grateful that of the hard and challenging things like disobedience, I can now, as a loving Christian mom, help my children grow. So that my live for today. I see someone saying the audio is glitchy. Kara, thanks for letting me know. If I'm having audio issues this week, I'm just going to redo the whole live. So I don't even know if you're getting this. I'm just going to type a message quick and say, I'll redo this if it's all screwy. Find out what's going on. I think it's a server issue. All right. That's my live for today. Thank you for catching it. My apologies if the audio is screwy. If it is, it's going to literally take two right after this because this is so near and dear to my heart. I want to share with you. So that's it for today. I'm going to catch you on Friday to pick up where we left off and do the other end of this. Have a great week. I'll see you on Friday.